Hi, welcome to In the Rough with Angie. I am here with my mom again today, Sue, and she is going to be talking about the 8 stages of human development created by Erik Erikson. And this is a theory that she has been studying for years. She is a teacher, so she teaches other teachers about child development and how to interact with kids in the classroom. And I've noticed learning from her over the years just on this topic that it helps me as a parent. I have an 8-year-old daughter, so it helps me with her. It helps me personally to kind of think about what stage I'm at right now in my life. So that's our goal today, is to, with back to school around the corner, my daughter actually starts in a week. So our goal is to really help parents, help teachers, and then help yourself to identify what's going on in these different stages. So this is my mom, Sue.
Hi, Angie. It's good to see you this morning. It's fun to be with you, too, to do a little talking about the 8 stages of human development. And I like the way you talked about what we're going to talk about today is going to help parents, teachers, and ourselves. Because when we look at the 8 stages of human development by Erik Erikson, we see that it's over the lifespan. So we're talking about from birth until death. And so we have a lot of stages in between. So we're going to talk about that today. There's 8 of them. And then when we do talk about it, we're going to say, okay, how can this information help parents? How can this information help teachers? And then finally, how can it help us as an individual? Because all of us who are on this podcast today, viewing it, or Angie and I listening, of course, we're in different stages. And so your stage is probably going to coming up, the ones I'm going to talk about, and the other stages you've passed through in childhood. So let's talk about these this morning. And the first stage is trust versus mistrust. Now, this is an age range of 0 to 18 months. And this is the main activity that's happening at this time is to help the child feel comfortable by they're getting their food, their cries are being answered. You know, they're able to trust that when they cry, someone is coming. And that is so important because that helps them develop that trust and believe that the world is a safe and predictable place. That's key word, predictable. So what it involves is, like I said, the feeding and also just consistent caregiving. And what should come from that is give the child a sense of hope. And if this is not resolved, the infant may grow into an anxious child who views the world as unreliable. So we want to make sure that the child says, this is a reliable, predictable world when they're in this stage. Now, as you know, I'm going to talk to you about 8. So each of these stages has a conflict. So the conflict in this first stage was trust versus mistrust. So you're going to begin to see that as we go through these 8 stages, there's a positive side, there's a negative side. You want to keep that child on the positive side as much as you can throughout childhood so that they can enter into adulthood with this positive child growth background. So in trust and versus mistrust, if the caregiver is reliable, and by caregiver I mean the parent, or it could be a babysitter in the home, or it could be a child in infant care. So we're talking this both parent and caregiver teacher. And if they're able to give this parent, teacher, caregiver consistent nurturing, the child will develop that sense of trust. If we do not do that, if we're not consistent, we don't have adequate care and affection, the child may develop that sense of mistrust. So you as a parent, your responsibility is, of course, at home, what you do with your child, but also if you do need to put them into daycare or in with a home situation with a sitter, make sure that they can do the same kind of care that you can do so that you have consistency. And I always encourage parents and teachers to talk to each other, be partners, work out how can I best serve this child as a parent and then as a teacher or a caregiver. So if you are able to foster trust in an infant, here's what happens. It helps you are responding to that child's crying and their needs. You're making eye contact. That's important. A person's face, the child is one of the most things they're interested in looking at is a face, and particularly your face or a consistent person in their life. That's the face they really want to see. Seeing that again and again and again is predictability. is making that child feel safe. You want to have predictable routines. So even though you may feel, oh, I can sleep in this morning, still have a predictable routine, the same routine with your child every day, because they have to see how routines work. You're teaching them about the world in your very first few months with them. That skin-to-skin contact. I know when my daughters had their children, it was so important that right after delivery, that baby was laid on their chest and just have that skin-to-skin contact. And then, that they have privacy to do that. So we as grandparents would wait, because the parent needed to and the child needed to bond. So before we can hold it. But it's important that we have that parent has that skin-to-skin contact. And then when they are able to start moving around a little bit, or you have them look at things, it's a safe environment. Safety is key. You always want to make sure that anywhere you have your child, that they're on a bed, they're not going to roll off. If they're on the floor, they're not going to, when they start crawling, get into something or even creeping. So all those things are really important. Let's go to the next stage. That was trust versus mistrust. Now we're going to step up to 18 months and 3 years. Angie, before we do that, did you have any example of something that you witnessed as a mother, a young mother in that infant stage to your daughter?
Yeah, so when Abby was born, my daughter's 8 now, we brought her home from the hospital and we had a bassinet for her. And we also had something called a DockATot, which goes in the bed so they can sleep right next to you safely. They can't roll over. You can't really roll over on them. I wasn't planning on using the DockATot for her sleeping, but when we got home, I just realized I don't want to put her in like a different room. I don't even want to put her on the other side of the room. I want her right next to me so that I can consistently give her what she needs with feeding, with if she needs a diaper change, like I can have her right next to me. So that for me was huge. But something that I've realized is sometimes as a parent, the way that we're doing our caregiving, it's helping the child, but also it's comfortable for us, right? Like it's a way we feel confident to be able to do the task. But the problem comes when you don't move your child on to the next stage. So that's an area I'm working on where I'm not holding my daughter back from the next stage because I'm comfortable with the previous stage. When she's ready, I need as a parent to be comfortable to move her on to that next stage. So I think this is why this is important that we're talking about it, because we're not trained as parents to, unless we're researching in books and stuff like that, we don't always know what the next stage is, when it's coming, what we need to be prepared for. So that's something that's been on my mind is like, I need to keep getting her ready for the next level.
That's awesome, Angie.
Yeah.
Because that is so true. Parents were not given a manual. When we leave the hospital that first day, they're not saying, okay, here, this is the book you use when you get home. There used to be books like that, and there are books like that. But it's not a step-by-step reading. It's as much information you can garner before the child is born. And I think a lot of us do that. We get books about babies and what to expect. And even having one right with you as the child is developing. What is the next milestone? And I like that you're saying that, Ange, because yes, look to the next milestone. That's what we do as teachers. What is the next milestone that I'm preparing my students in my classroom for? Okay, so the next one and I also want to say something about feeding, Angie, because you were saying, you were watching for Abby's needs. And, what is your daughter going to need in the middle of the night? But she's right next to you. You hear her, you're able to respond right away. One of the things, and you said something about ourselves. What did you mean by that? You said that we think of ourselves. What were you thinking when you said that?
Well, as a mom, have you ever heard the term helicopter mom?
Yes, I have.
Sometimes I feel like I'm that, where I'm overprotective. So sometimes when we're overprotective, it's because it's making us feel safer as a parent to be that way. But it's not really giving our kids an opportunity to grow and move forward. So what I'm saying is I noticed that about myself. So I'm working through that now to let her move on to these next stages and not make it so much about my fear or what makes me comfortable, but making sure she's entering into these next stages safely, right? Without me being a helicopter mom.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I understand that. So also too, I was thinking of the feeding. when we think of the child, we're going to bring that child to us and we're going to hold them and feed them. The thing we do not want to do is say, okay, I am tired, I just want to roll back to sleep. And then we prop the bottle for them to drink the bottle. No, they need to be held by us. That's part of this developing the trust. Mm-hmm. And you're giving them, making them feel safe. You're bringing them into you. And the other thing is, I told you they like to look at our faces. They like our eyes. They want to see our eyes. And so when you're holding them, I remember you guys, my 3 daughters, when I was holding you. I remember looking into your eyes and you'd be looking back at me. That's you're establishing a bond when you do that. Mm-hmm. It's very important. So I wanted to get that in there about feeding. Do not prop a bottle up with a little blanket or something. We got to hold those babies because we're working on trust.
Yeah.
And I think as you listen to these 8 stages, Angie, and I know you've known them because you reviewed it for us to talk today, but always keep what is the positive side and what am I doing as a parent in these beginning stages to make sure that I'm really going to develop that positive side of that stage. Okay. Yeah. So the next stage is stage 2, and that's 18 months to 3 years. So this is the autonomy versus shame stage. These are the preschool years, Angie. These are really cool years. Yeah. And, what are they doing now at this age? They're toddlers. And of course, 18 months to 3 years, they're in a toddler stage. But, by 2.5, they're walking pretty good. Kind of crawling. They're probably running too, in the house or whatever. But they're starting to explore now. That's huge to them. And they need to assert their independence. So the big thing that we're developing now in this early preschool, you might say, 18 months to 3 years, what we develop here as teachers is in the toddler classroom, we're working on independence, helping them learn to do things independently. We show them routines in our classroom. If they want some water, and we have a little water dispenser, maybe with a filter, or showing them how they can turn on the spigot to get some water. That's good. You want to show them do as many routines as they can do. And that's me as a teacher when I was in that, and I was in that age group with teaching in Montessori school. I taught 18 months to 3 years. And everything we did was to teach independence. But we taught them routines. So we can't just expect them to know how to do it. First 2 weeks of school as a regular teacher when I was in elementary, when I was in preschool, first 2 weeks of any school, you're teaching routine. So what does that say to the parent? You have routines in your home, and you're teaching these kind of routines so they can learn independence. So what do they like to do? They want to start to dress themselves. Now, Ange, I remember this. I had 3 girls in 3.5 years. And so getting you 3 ready for preschool, how are we going to get ready for you guys for preschool in the morning and we not have arguments, try to do it in a way that we all leave the house positive. So, what you do, there are a lot of pre-planning things you do the night before. You get the clothes ready. I saw a little hanger thing on Facebook the other day that you could hang on their closet door. And it was like a little baskets in every level. And then it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So what you could do is you could put the outfit in there that they're going to wear each day. Have them, as a parent, have them help you pick their own clothes out. What do you want to wear? Tomorrow's going to be Monday, so let's put your first preschool outfit in there for tomorrow, or daycare if they're going there, or the outfit they're going to wear at home that day. Try to even have an established routine where your kids are being dressed in the morning so that they, even if they're not going to daycare or preschool, that they're learning a routine.
Yeah, and it doesn't come naturally to some parents. Organization has always been something I've been working on. You know that. Mm-hmm. I would stuff my papers in school in my backpack or in my desk. I didn't want to organize things. So now as a parent, my daughter needs that too. So I have to continue to work on that, right? It's not, some parents have it more than other parents, like my sister, and she's structured. She can say in the mornings, we're going to have our juice, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this. She's naturally very good at that. I have to work on that. So do you have any tips for parents that aren't naturally that way?
Yeah, and that's really good that you say that, Ange, because we all are different. So the first thing to do is understand what are you not doing, or what should be doing that would help your child. And maybe look at that first. And if organization is something, well, then think about products that you can use or systems that you can use. Mm-hmm. And For example, when I talked about that hanger that you could put on your closet door of your child's room,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
like it was actually like a little pull-out drawer. It was all a hard plastic kind of thing, soft hard plastic. You pull out the drawer and it has already labeled Monday on the outside. You then go down to Tuesday. So something like that, something that's going to visually organize you and visually organize the child, but you stay with that routine, you know, you stay consistent with it. And that's going to be the same thing for an early childhood teacher, that the children know that this particular item is going to be here. And when I need it, that's where I come to get it. If I need a tissue, I know where to go for tissues. If I need a drink, I know where to go for my water. So I think routines, but you find products or systems. And how do you find systems? You know, there's so many books, but there's also so many, I don't know if people watch Facebook much anymore, but even there's Facebook groups, probably groups on other software applications as well that you could join that talk about just those things. How do we become organized? If you're a parent of a young child, join a group, get tips, you know, those kinds of things. And
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm going to work on, is getting more organized myself, because they mirror what we do. So if we're not doing it, how's that going to be part of their life?
Right. See, and they have to see it, you know, just like you need to get them organized, help them learn to be organized in the morning. After they've chosen their clothes, then they should make their bed. They should, I mean, that is so simple. You don't have to always have the top sheet on. You can have a comforter. They can easily pull up and make the bed. You know, however they can make the bed, take the pillows and kind of fluff it up so it looks like a made bed, you know.
Yeah.
Then that's the same for us, isn't it, Angie? That we have to make our beds, you know, and, you know, it's something, yeah.
Just kidding.
And why is that? Because my child could walk in my room and see, man, mom doesn't.
Oh, she's got a messy mom.
So I've learned that, you know, it's like when companies coming over, everything looks perfect, right? Well, you want to make your house not look perfect all the time, but you want your child, if you're teaching them a routine, I'm just saying this because I could have done it better. If we teach a child routine, we need to make sure we're doing the routine ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that they can, kids are observing all the time, you know, that's how they learn. 0 birth to 5 years, they're always observing and processing what they're observing. You know, thank you, Angie. It's a good topic. Okay, here's things you can do with that child, 18 months to 3 years, to develop autonomy. Is you give them choices. We talked about clothes. You want to wear the blue shirt or the green shirt. Tomorrow, let's put it in your little drawer so it's ready for tomorrow. Here's the shorts you're going to wear with it tomorrow. Here are the socks. It's all in there. The shoes you're going to wear, right there. But you're allowing them choices in that process. And that's why, Ange, I think it's good to do it the night before, because you know how the morning goes.
Yeah.
You can't get enough done in the morning because we don't always feel like getting up, you know?
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure the night before we do the majority of this organizing for them. But they help us. They have their self-care activities. They can wipe their face in the morning, you know, with a washcloth. You should get some help with maybe a little bit with the water and how wet it is. But they can do that. And this is such an important part, is how to avoid harsh punishment. So what we need to do is always be guiding them. My job as a teacher, your job as a parent, is to guide your child. And we want to give them praise for their effort. What we want them to feel good about their praise. We want them to feel good about their effort. So there's kind of a little line here that you have to think about. You don't want them to always depend on you saying, good job, you know. What you want them to say to themselves is, I did it, you know. So you watch that encouraging, but do encourage, but be careful that you want to make sure that they're intrinsically, inside of them, they are feeling good about what they accomplished. You want to reassure them that after they make mistakes, that is all part of learning. And, you know, when they spill the milk on the table, you know, we can't react like, oh, wow, you know. No, what we have to do is just be calm, you know, and just, okay. And because already they're kind of upset.
Should we do that with our husbands too?
Sure. So, you know, you're going to wipe it up quick. You know, you're going to, I'm not going to even talk about it, you know, deal with it and move on. But let kids know that, we all make mistakes. Angie, you know, I'm still making mistakes and I try to correct them as quick as I can. But we've got to forgive ourselves when we as adults make mistakes, think about how not to do that again. But then we need kids to say, okay, I made that, but I'm learning. I learned something there today. Maybe they had the milk. Isn't that so true? When we get together with our family, we've got all the kids at one table, and sometimes someone's juice or whatever the drink is for that lunch at the kids' table is right at the edge. And you and I, as a parent, we know that thing could go like this, right? They could go like that with their hand, and there goes everything on the floor of the table. It's being careful not to be the helicopter parent and always in there, moving all the stuff. Maybe ask questions. Do you think you're ready to eat now? Do you think everything's in a good place? Maybe kind of like that, especially at home, so that they can learn these things before they go to the cousin table, at Christmas or Thanksgiving. They kind of know how they can act, the manners that they can use so that things don't get pushed over or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. And kids are developing at different paces too. Yes. Even if this says, okay, from this time to this time, this is what they should be doing. Some kids have learning disabilities or little setbacks within themselves that takes them longer to get it than other kids. So it's patience too, having patience, knowing, okay, this child may take longer to get this certain principle, but maybe other principles they're more advanced on, they're ahead on, but this one, for some reason, they're struggling more with it. So then having more patience as a parent to know why is it taking longer? Like you said, ask questions and then demonstrate what they should be doing in a positive way.
Yes. That's excellent, Angie. Okay, let's go on to the third stage. And the third stage is 3 to 5 years, initiative versus guilt. So I, for many years, taught preschool, but I also was a preschool director. And I had an opportunity I do that at the high school level. I had a class where I taught students how to become a teacher. And then they came into our preschool. And as the director of that preschool, then I guided them in there on the different learning stations in our classroom and that kind of thing. But it was a very planned, organized environment. And I had to teach my students, my high school students, how to use that environment to help the children. Well, we at home, how do we take that same principle that if at preschool they organize things like they have a large muscle area, a place for dramatic play, a place for art, they have a place for looking at books, they have cozy little areas for kids and indirect lighting. Kids do not like this. I don't know, in public schools, this is something as a public school teacher that bothered me, is those fluorescent lights. They come straight down, and kids have told me it hurts my eyes. And so at home, we need to think of that too. Do we have too bright a lighting on, or do they have enough lighting they can see? Mm-hmm. So the environment, I guess, start with your environment.
Right.
Is it safe? Is there cozy spots to go to for them at home? Are there places to look at books? Is there a table that if they want to do art, they easily can find the crayons, the pencils, things that they need. I even had, well, as you know, Angie, and if you can remember back, I turned our living room into one of our houses. It was actually the dining room into one of our houses, into a kind of a structured playroom for you girls, because I was teaching Montessori at the time. So I set it up where you could be independently using that room, but I was with you, but you would have different preschool type areas in it. So at home, we can model some things from the school if we have the room, but I think the important thing is to have routines, and if your child is in school, partner with that teacher. What are you doing in school that I can support you with at home?
Yeah.
So it's parents and teachers should become partners, and I believe that all along. And teachers, you need to tell the parents, I'm your partner. I want to be partners with you, because it's so much better when you work together. So if this stage, what they're trying to do is they're trying out new roles, they're trying out new ways of exploring, and they're trying to do new activities together. Well, for 3 to 5 years, it's a little bit of the age range, right? You've got that 3-year-old in there. It's kind of young. I had in all my preschools, 3 to 5s were in the same classroom. So that means I had to have activities for the younger child, and I had to have activities for the older child. But I would show them how to do those activities, and that comes from my Montessori training. Anyone listening here that knows Montessori knows that there's a sequence and way that we introduce the lessons. Well, I taught parents how to do that too. There's things you can do in your home that teach. For example, kids like to pour water, and you can have 2 You can set it at your kitchen table, or if your picnic table out back in the backyard, set up like 2 totes, and that you have water transfer. And they can take a cup and go from this water in this tote and go and put it into that one, this one into that. There's so much you can teach them at home as well as what we do at preschool. So what you're doing is teaching new roles. And you want the kids to try new things. And for the most part, I would see 3 to 5s do want to try something new. But that's because you can tell who's come through that stage of just before them, which was, you got trust, mistrust. Do they trust us as teachers? Do they trust that we're going to be predictable? And then autonomy versus shame. Do they feel independent to try things? So you can see how these levels build on each other. The age range then is 3 to 5 in this stage. The key thing is they're playing and they're asking why. They say 2-year-olds ask that question a lot, why? They're not trying to be rebellious. They just want to know why. They're trying to find their purpose even at that young age. So we want to enhance that. We want to encourage their creativity. Do you have any examples from that stage for preschoolers, Ange?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the organization thing. So Jimmy, I think he talked to you about this too. There's an app that he got me on that he's also on that helps us organize our day. So because I'm not naturally somebody that wants to be organized, having something to tell me, okay, today you plan to do this, 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 and this. If I have that, then I know, okay, from this time I work on my things, and then from this time of the day, I'm focusing on my daughter and what she needs, and I'm not getting distracted, and I'm not trying to multitask, but I'm putting certain amount of times during the day for specific things, because otherwise it's going to be me trying to get something done, but my daughter needs something, and then I'm not fully focused on her because I'm thinking, well, I need to get this done. My brain is not organized in my day. So organizing my brain personally for me in my day by, like my husband said, download this app that's going to help us schedule our days better. So thinking of things like that, like what helps me personally, or do I need to write it down in a notebook? Do I not like using apps on my phone, but if I write it visually on a daily planner or a notebook, then that's something that I've realized will help me too.
That's awesome. That's really targeting what you need to do. Yeah, and I think organization is so important because that's what you're teaching them. That's good, Angie. So what we want to do for preschoolers to help them develop initiative is create opportunities for pretend play, role playing. Let them have a little kitchen they can role play. Puppets help with that, storytelling. You want to support their curiosity by answering their why questions. Scientific experiments, they love them. That's another way to bond with your children. Get a book on just experiments, simple experiments for preschoolers. Of course, the sink and float is a traditional one, but we can think of so many. I've done things with volcanoes. There's a assortment that you can find on the internet real easy about some activities you can do at home. Science is a good way because they see a cause of something, and they see when you do something to that, it has an effect. Give them some leadership roles. Once again, that's asking questions. What do you want to do for an arts and crafts? We're going to put together this week some things that we can do, some of the different days. Don't get all 5 days, but get a couple of things. Go to the store. Now, tell me what you like. We're in the store. Tell me some things you like. We got a budget. We're going to frugal with our money, but what would you like us to do for crafts? They can come up with the greatest ideas, and together we pick it out and come up and do it at home.
Yeah, and let them know what to expect. Don't just wing it. That's what I tend to do, right? But no, they need to know what to expect when they're going into different situations, because then that will help them, I don't know what the word is, know how to navigate the situation.
That's good, Ange. Yes, that's right. So you're helping them do that. And then you want to encourage problem solving. So that's what I like about working together on a craft, is they help you decide what you're going to put together to make the craft. And it could be, we did with Abby and her cousins, who are all in the same age, we did an activity where we created diagrammas, and meaning that we bought those tiny little people like at the dollar store, and we bought some of the little trees and things that went with it and tables and stuff. And then we took cardboard boxes, and I had them paint the outside, put in a door, and then they decorated inside the house and then put these little dolls and little people in there and created rooms, like that's what we're doing now in Roblox, right? That's what the kids like. I just created this whole house in Roblox. Well, here they can do it hands-on. I guess when I'm now saying that, I want to say, don't do everything digital. Do things a lot, if you can, hands-on.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me touch it. Let me feel it. I can create it in my mind's eye, and I can create it in that digital platform. But can you create it at home in a setting where you've picked up items, physical items to do? And then use things from outside too. Go get some leaves, go get some little sticks, however you can make that work. But that is that age that's so important, is initiative versus guilt. You're creating initiative in them, and you're helping them build their confidence, and they're learning from their mistakes. And it's okay to make a mistake. It's just okay. You're learning from it. And you can use always an example. I'm still learning. When I make peanut butter cookies, sometimes I don't follow recipe, Angie. I put, that's enough peanut butter, that's enough brown sugar, that's enough vanilla, that's enough white sugar, and stir it up, and then open up a bag of cut chocolate chips and pour it in. I don't, but I've done enough chocolate chip cookies. I know how to do that. But if I'm going to teach Abby or her cousins, what I'm going to do is I would follow a step-by-step recipe, But I always saw my mom cook that way, so I cook that way. My grandma cooked that way. That's how I cook. I don't follow recipes. You just tell me what's in it, and I'll figure it out.
That's good.
So, okay. You want to go to the next stage, Angie Lou?
Sure.
Okay, that stage is industry versus inferiority. And I apologize to your audience. I do have allergies, and I've taken an allergy pill, but I'm in the North Woods right now.
Yeah, you're in Wisconsin,
which has some allergy stuff out there. Okay, stage 4 is industry versus inferiority, and this is age 5 to 12. And here, children are entering school. They are comparing their abilities to their friends, the others in their classroom, and they're learning how to demonstrate their competencies. Now, they need a lot of support from teachers and a lot of support from parents, because what you want them to develop is industry. You want them to have confidence in their skills, confidence. So if you as a parent in that preceding stage, in the preschool years, you were doing projects with them at home, they're learning confidence at home with you, as well as at school, they're learning confidence.
Yeah.
So now they're going into elementary school. So we're talking, this kindergarten to 5th grade is what we're talking here. So what are the key things? Key things in these years would be schoolwork, peer comparisons, skill building, relationship building, and they're learning competence. And if they do not, this is the negative part of these conflicts. If they do not develop a sense of confidence or competence, they come to this stage with inferiority, and they hang on to that inferiority. And I've seen that in kids. They did not do well in kindergarten, in 1st grade. It never really worked for them. Part of it is you don't know what their own behavior is. You don't know if they have something that's keeping them from learning. So that's why early on in the 1st grade, kindergarten years, we're looking at, are there any concerns that we might have why this child may or may not be absorbing the information, may not be moving forward in their academics or their social skills. And so we're looking for that as kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade teachers. We want them to have a lasting ability of confidence. And so what we do in the public school is, if I'm a 1st grade teacher, I talk to the kindergarten teacher from who had them last year, and I find out, what can these kids do? I also have a comp file that I go to, a cumulative file, that we have a room that's actually cumulative files. And we go in there as teachers, and we are able to look at the file. What did they do in kindergarten? Okay, are there any preschool records in here? So you are learning the child. That's important for teachers, learn the child. So as parents, we need to help the teacher learn the child. Tell them how they work on things at home. Tell them things you're working on. Tell them the passion you've seen for children about something, like reptiles, or some kind of snake. Hognose snake, is that it, Ange?
Yeah.
Tell them they know some cool stuff. And kids do when they, find out their passion. Like one of the children in our family, it was dinosaurs. He loved dinosaurs. And you could ask him anything about dinosaurs in the preschool early grades, and he could tell you about them. So we need to respect that as teachers. This child is coming to us with some experience and some knowledge. So you as a parent can help your child's teacher, know more about your child, and sharing that. And really, I welcome to hear that as a teacher. So don't tell it succinctly, don't go on and on and on as a parent, but tell them succinctly, this is what I've observed, and man, that partnership really can start, you and that teacher together, building a good year for that child. So that's what we're trying to do in that stage, is help them develop industry, to be able to have a good relationship with their children, to build their life skills, problem solving, teamwork, cooperation. We do all that in the classroom in the elementary years. We work in teams, we work in groups, and we help them understand sometimes you're going to have a failure. That's okay. That's one of the ways we learn. Any comments that you've seen in that age group, Ange?
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking about that with back to school, so meet the teacher, when the parents are meeting the teacher to start, what they've done for us, the school that my daughter's at, is they'll have a sheet of paper with questions on it for the parent, like what are you looking to improve for your child this year, or what is your child good at, what do they might need extra assistance in. So I've liked that they've done that, because right in the get-go, it gets us thinking as parents, what areas are we trying to work on this year? And it lets the teacher know that my child is naturally this way, they're naturally gifted in this, and we're working on this. So it starts that communication. And yeah, I like what you said, to let the teachers know what to expect. Don't just let them figure it out as the year goes on. Give them the information they need to know, so it's going to help your child.
Yes. And establish that rapport. And that's what I encourage teachers to do in my education classes, because I teach child development and I teach teacher education at the college level. So I encourage them to develop partnerships with the parents. So and that's one of the things I have them do. Do an inventory like you just talked about, beginning of the year. Have them either email it back to the teacher, whatever way, but do need to have that, be sure to get it back. And then start a conversation with them. So I encourage teachers to call the parents at the beginning of the year. Have initial conversation with them. Remember your kindergarten teacher, Angie? She came to visit you in our home before you started kindergarten. And I think that's wonderful. And most kindergarten teachers do a home visitation. I think that's wonderful. Maybe we need to continue that through the years,
Yeah.
Just such an important bond. Okay. You ready for the teenage years, Ange?
Am I ready for the teenage years? We will find out next episode. This was part 1 of Erik Erikson's 8 stages of human development. So stay tuned for part 2, where we will go over the next half of these stages. Thank you. Enjoy. Bye-bye.